A lot of people are celebrating this no deal trade deal with China. What? What do you mean, Greg, no deal trade deal? Well, I'm going to explain it. A lot of people think this is a great deal because supposedly we're getting easement on tariffs coming both ways. As you know, Donald Trump, through escalating trade war, had upped the tariffs to China to 145% in this so-called deal, which is just a 90-day provision while they negotiate supposedly a real trade deal. We decided that we would lower our tariffs to 30%, which includes the 10% base tariff that he had levied and also the 20% tariff he had levied to try to force the Chinese into controlling fentanyl coming in the United States. Now, that sounds good. And to have a fentanyl related tariff, I'm definitely in support of that. And this is better than the tariffs that China supposedly put upon us, which they had levied their tariffs up to 125% and lowered it to 10%. So we're still at 30%, and they're now down to 10% tariffs of our goods. And supposedly they have opened up the deal to allow stuff to come in from the United States to lower their barriers from us. I'm going to show you in a moment why that's bogus, why that is not really going to pan out as you think. But in the meantime, let's just have a look at it. Here is my main contention, my main issue with what I call this no deal trade deal. Have a listen here to what Donald Trump has to say.
The market was really happy with the China situation and the sit
They
down
were.
with
And you
the
know
Treasury
what?
Secretary.
If I
Is this
didn't
the
do that
beginning?
deal, if I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
What? Let's get that again. Let's hear that again.
They were.
With
And you
the
know
Treasury
what?
Secretary.
If I
Is this
didn't
the
do that
beginning?
deal, if I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Now, what is wrong with that? What is wrong with breaking them apart? Listen.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're not going to break. They would have broken apart. You know, our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th.
Now get this, guys. Listen to that. He thought China would have broken apart. Why did we stop now? You remember all these videos I've been doing about the existential threat from China, how they got us hacked up one side and down the other, how they're inside our country, inside our institutions, how they have infiltrated us at every level in our society. Holy smoke, guys, the best thing we could hope would be the CCP would fall out of power. Now, some people think the whole country would splinter into a bunch of different provinces. I don't think it's splintered up that much, but Tibet could use some freedom. Remember back in the 80s when we had the bumper stickers, Free Tibet? How about here they got listed East Turkestan? Well, that's really Xinjiang. That's where the Uyghurs are, who have been severely oppressed by the Chinese Communist Party. So, my friends, it might not be such a bad deal to have the major threat to Western civilization broken apart, in my humble opinion. At least have the CCP fall out of power. Right now, there's huge protests in China against the CCP. Now, maybe Trump has an ace up his sleeve. Maybe he knows they're destined to break apart anyway, and maybe he just wants to take the blame off the United States, so maybe they won't flip the off switches on us in the meantime. I don't know. But guys, sometimes you kick them when they're down. Not that I want to kick China as a country. There's great people there, but the Chinese Communist Party is the oppressor of those people. They would be well served to get rid of that yoke off their neck, and it's a threat to the entire planet right now. I've talked about this many times in many different ways. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, go back and look at my last video on here and many others I've done over the years before that. So, what we're doing is this cheap junk we're buying from China is paying for their huge navy, for their huge air force, for their rocket forces, which they plan to use against us. And so, having to pay a little bit more at Walmart to buy junk we ought not be buying in the first place, it might not be such a bad proposition. We need to be producing more here in the United States. But now let's have a look at this stuff, my friends. Tariffs. So here's one of the other things. Uh, we've had companies like Apple planning to move to India, and this trade deal might threaten or derail these plans. I mean, we're talking about companies moving to countries that are more friendly to us. India could use this, and it would be better off for us too because we're not funding a country that's dedicated to apparently our demise, or at least putting us under their control. A country that we may be in war with in a very short term. We're funding their war machine, my friends. That's what we're doing. We're funding them to hack us. They're hacked us massively. Everything in this country. I just did a video on that. So if they fall apart before they can hit the off switch, maybe nobody's going to be there to hit the off switch. We could have a whole change in attitude within the country of China, and with the yoke off of their neck and suddenly freedom to pursue economic opportunities, China would flourish. They would do far better than what they're doing right now. But China faces existential problems economically. They face the demise. If you listen to geopolitical analyst Peter Zeihan talk, he will tell you that they probably only have 8 years at best without the tariffs. The tariffs might push them into that teeter-totter center. I'm going to do some videos in the not too distant future showing, though, how they could overcome that and have a resurgence in growth due to robotics and, yeah, gene and clone technology. I'm kidding you not, guys. China is aggressively pursuing these in order to overcome their shortfalls in their demography, to make their demographics better. And it's something Peter Zeihan has not banked on, but China is banking on. China does have a plan for that. But there is a window right here, a short window of opportunity that we might could have a change of guard in China, and also to better the outcomes of other friendly nations like India and maybe Mexico and ourselves, to have factories come here, jobs return to America, growing our own tax base instead of sending everything overseas. So, my friends, we're really shortchanging ourselves. Mr. Wonderful from the Shark Tank, what's his name, O'Leary, Kevin O'Leary, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat below, but he said he believes that tariffs on China should be 400% because of what they've done to millions of American businessmen who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars or family fortune trying to develop a product and get it in the market, many of which that Mr. Wonderful himself invested in, only to see China turn around and duplicate it immediately and sell it, at a lower price, undercut the person and put them out of business. Still an intellectual property. That's what Chinese like to do. The Chinese Communist Party. I don't want to disparage the people of China, because there's good people there. I got nothing against the people. It's the party, the corrupt one party system that controls, where, they have absolute power, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that party is corrupt. But anyway, all that aside, my friends, we've had an opportunity here, and we may be thwarted. And it's more than this, guys. We import 4 times more from China than they import from us. The balance sheet is on our side in a trade war. They're the ones that's going to lose in the long run, not us. And that's where Trump was right in saying that we're not going to break apart. It's not going to break us. China has an economy that's teetering because of the real estate issues and the fact that actually labor cost in China has increased quite a bit. And they're no longer as competitive as they were. India is more competitive on the cost of labor and has a more skilled labor force, and so does actually Mexico. But there's still this big investment in factories in China, so they got inertia due to that. So if we could change the ledger and put things more in our favor, we should be stable with that, not going up and down with these tariffs. So we got a surge in the stock market. That sounds good. Inflation at Walmart won't be so bad at first. But guys, we're trading this for our national security. We are trading cheap junk from Walmart for our national security. And so if we got a chance to maybe help bring about a change of guard in China, that's what we ought to be focused on, not worried about breaking them apart. That little piece that Trump put out there worries me. But then again, like I said, maybe he's playing 4D chess. Maybe he understands they're going to break it apart anyway and just don't want to blame on our shoulders. But I think this is a narrow opportunity that we have here. I don't subscribe to Peter Zeihan's it's a permanent dissolution of China. They got a way to come back. And I'm going to show that in some future videos, how China can come back strong and dominate this planet if we don't watch ourselves. What we've got to do. And it's probably something we're going to have to deal with, because I'm just not sure that we're going to take the opportunity of this the way we could and should. It seems to me like Trump maybe accidentally in his 4D game of chess forgetting that China may actually be playing 5D chess. They may be ahead of us. Now, it is true that Chinese economy has stumbled. Now, a lot of people have said, well, China can sell, they don't need the United States market. They can sell to the global south. They can sell to themselves. And this is also the fallacy and the idea that so we're suddenly going to be selling a lot of stuff to China by them lowering tariffs on their end and opening their markets up. Yeah, we sell some grain and stuff like that, kind of third world countries selling resources. But we've lost the edge on a lot of manufactured goods, except some of the high tech stuff to being sold to China. However, here's the thing, guys. The Chinese market can't absorb our products. And the case in point is this: the Chinese people aren't even able to absorb Chinese products. The Chinese factories have turned around and offered their products when nothing was moving to the States to the people in China at below factory costs, at below factory cost, and they can't sell it. The people there aren't buying. The people there are poor. The people there are struggling financially due to the real estate fiascos, due to youth unemployment, due to because they really studied skills that was college skills like our students studying instead of the trades. We got a similar problem here in that regard. But the workforce there isn't aligned with the needs of the factories so much, and the kids there have a high unemployment rate. A lot of the people there are just quitting the system. They started with a little trend called lying flat, and has graduated to what they call the rat people, which are people who are just kind of giving up on life and trying to live a minimalist existence in China, which the state don't want to see. China had people working what they call 999. Basically, it boiled up to 9 hours a day, and then we're actually working 6 days a week. So I don't remember what all it was 996. I forget what one of the nines was. 9 hours a day, up to 6 days a week, and I forget what the other nine was. But anyway, that was the thing. So Chinese people that are working like extremely hard. People that think they're going to get by under socialism and communism and skate easy really don't understand the dynamics in those countries. None of them. But in any event, and they don't have no social safety net over there like we have here. So a lot of people got this upside down in their heads. But in any event, the people there just aren't ready to buy. That's the bottom line. They're not buying their own stuff. So why are they going to buy our stuff that comes in with the cost of American labor, even if the tariffs are low? You're not going to see a big movement in the market. Now, they did go ahead and decide to take back those Boeing aircraft that they had ordered and sent home back to I guess, Washington State or wherever. They had ordered quite a few aircraft from Boeing. And now that's a big purchase, and that will help us. And that definitely is going to help the United States some right there. But then again, on the whole, this deal is not what it's cracked up to be. Now, again, it's only a 90-day thing, and after 90 days, if they don't reach an agreement, it reverts back to 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. And I'm kind of with Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, whatever his name is, because I really think that China has taken so much opportunity at the expense of the Americans that they ought to pay more. In fact, we shouldn't even be buying their stuff in the first place if we can find ways around it. Now, unfortunately, we got ourselves in a position where China's a sole supplier for so much that we use in our society. It's scary when you're looking at somebody that's your potential primary enemy in the next war, World War III, and you're totally dependent on them for medicines and so many things. How do we get ourselves in that position? That was just lame brain on our side. But China loves that. They love it. They got us where they want us. But yet we just allowed it to happen because we were asleep at the switch, or maybe there's some money that slipped under the table. I believe a lot of people are on the Chinese payroll. How does China get so many countries on their side? Well, it's not always the countries that want to go along with them. They pay off the leadership. You pay the leadership, you give some tin horn dictator $1 million. He's feeling happy, and he subscribes the whole country to China on the idea that China's going to come in and build infrastructure, but yet it's got to be all Chinese jobs. You're basically paying them to do it. You're taking out a loan for it. And then when you can't make the repayments on the loan because it's really too big, China sweeps in and takes ownership of it all. So really, you haven't bought anything. What happened? Some tin horn dictator got a little money in his pocket, maybe a few other people. And that happens in our media and a lot of places here. And I think a lot of people over here will take also. And there's also the little 50-cent army that China uses to troll the internet. So, and they will go in little bots that will attack you and blah, 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 whatever. So this is the case, guys, that we've got to be careful here where we're going with these trades. I think the tariffs were a good thing to start with, and that we maybe not need to be 145%, but down to 30% is pretty dang low. I think that Trump really needs to think about this, and the negotiators of this really need to consider it. Because, like I said, China isn't able to absorb their own stuff. They're not going to be absorbing our stuff. So, but the other countries, the Asian countries, the global South, they will take up what America's not buying. Well, it's not happening. Why? Because these same countries are in the same kind of pressures the United States has been under. They're losing jobs just like we are. Same is true of Europe. All these other places have been suffering at having cheap Chinese goods dumped upon them. Chinese sellers of items from lunchboxes and appliances are taking the social media platform here, trying to get people to play off sympathy, get people to buy their stuff. But this goes in, talking about, yeah, that's just a lot of that stuff. But the bottom line here is that Europe is in trouble. I think that's what this article is about somewhere down there. I'm not going to read the article. The Asian countries are facing the same thing. So, the ASEAN, however, this is a name for the Pact of Asian Nations, basically saying that they're facing their own China shock. So they're not able to absorb more. Oh, but Africa, the global South, well, they're dealing with problems like illegal fishing in China, in Africa, due to the Chinese fishing fleets. And they're doing this worldwide, guys. They're fishing where they're not supposed to be fishing in other countries' territories, and fish preserves like we set up this giant preserve in the Pacific Ocean that was supposed to be off zone, like a national park, to allow fish populations to restore. No, China's going in and trawling all that stuff. They'll go outside with their fleets, and they'll turn the lights off and the transponders off, and they'll go in. They're doing this to other countries: Peru, Ecuador, Chile, all kind of countries, Asian countries. But see, here it is once again: a disruption of African manufacturing. Large amounts of Chinese goods having on local light manufacturing a huge impact. In fact, in Nigeria, in the textile industry, it's cost them 80% of their factories that had to shut down, resulting in the loss of 250,000 jobs. And that's just one country, Nigeria. 80% of their factories shut down and a loss of 250,000 jobs. That's huge in Africa. Africa's a poor place. They need all the help they can get, yet they find themselves ensconced into loans they can't pay back to China for Belt and Road Initiative infrastructure, which the Chinese will wind up owning. And it's like, they didn't even get their own jobs to do it. They borrowed the money and paid for it, and the Chinese workers came in and built all this stuff. So Africa can't absorb it. The global South, South Africa, South America, Asia, Europe, none of these countries can absorb what America bought. Now, America really was only maybe 20 some odd percent of the Chinese total export market. But you got to realize all the other markets are strained, and that's the pretty big straw to be breaking the camel's back, because the Chinese economy is already in dire trouble. Now, give them a few years and they'll pull out of it if we don't see a change of guard. And hopefully we'll see a change of guard over there, and then we will pull out of it, and we'll all be much happier and get along a lot better down the road. I think we'll be far better served if the CCP is no longer in charge of the Chinese destiny. So let the people have charge. And, no one party system does that anywhere, but especially the Communist Party. And Communist parties only thrive where they're the only alternative, because if there was any other alternative, the people would choose it. That's why they have to be a one-party state, for all those that think communism is so great and wonderful. So, well, here's something else. The BRICS countries, though, have been pushing down on the dollar. Just for your own edification, you need to know this, that the dollar, because of mainly our national debt's our biggest enemy to our dollar, we've just got downrated on our credit rating and by Moody's, and so that is really knocking us hard. And what that means is our dollar has lost more value. So keep that in mind, guys. Just for your prepping purposes, you might want to invest in other things. Well, yeah, this is the 90-day pause. Again, I'm not going to go into that article. I'm going to just hit this real quick. or uncertain times because of the U.S. debt. And because of that, the dollar is poised to lose. And that's what's happening. It could hurt the stock market too. They're talking about maybe a huge dump in the stock market. That's why you might want to consider storing your money in some other means of value. If you've got some money, you might want to think about other places to squirrel it away. A lot of people like Bitcoin, but if the grid falls down, and we just talked about China having all these switches to turn our grid off, at every stage of the power cycle, from production to transmission, command and control, and your meter at your house. So when you look at all that, you might want to think of something that's not electronic. Gold's been a good storage of value for a long time, and I'm not here I'm not a financial advisor, so that's my caveat. And we know that gold could go up or down, but it has had a pretty good ride, my friends. So if you come here to defythegrid.com, you can buy gold, silver, you can buy platinum, you can buy it in rounds, you can buy bullion, the bars, you can buy what I like is goldbacks, and they got a silver version of that too. Silver notes, and these goldbacks are beautiful. They're works of art. That's part of the value, and they're denoted in thousandths of a troy ounce. And you can put this stuff in your wallet, my friends. You can stick it in your wallet. I'll show you one in a minute. So think about this. Use discount code GreenGregs if you go there, and that'll get you 1% off. Stop the share. Bada boom, bada bang. Halo. Just to show you here, I got a wallet. And in my trusty, dusty wallet, I got one of the smaller note goldbacks in here right now. Ta-da! In my wallet. See there? Anyway, there's something to think about. But anyway, guys, what it boils down to, you need long-term food storage. You need to buy seeds and grow your garden. I'll put links for seeds down below. That I get a little bit of a kickback on them more than that, but people seem to like buy this more. That's why I'm showing it to you. I only get 1% on this. I get a little bit better on the seed deals, but you need to buy seeds too, guys. You need to grow your own food, because we are in a dire strait right now. We got a chance to maybe help the Chinese people push Xi Jinping out of power. They're already protesting against him. There's lots of protests in China right now. They're even burning down factories in China. There's other videos you can go see where the people there are tired and hadn't been paid in a couple of months. This is before our tariffs kicked in, my friends, before our tariffs kicked in. A lot of these people weren't even getting paid. So that's just another reason why you'll see the economy over there is really bad, and why you can't really expect that the Chinese people are going to pick up something and buy a lot of stuff in America, because they're not even buying their own stuff at below factory prices, below factory production prices. When you can't buy something cheaper than the factory there in China can make it, when it's right there at home, the idea that we're going to make something with our high labor rates and ship it all the way over there, and the Chinese consumers are just going to start snapping it up, I don't think so. That's why I call it the no-deal trade deal. Where's the deal in it? We're not really getting as much back. Yeah, we're paying a little less than Walmart, but then you're going to pay for it in your defense budget. You can pay for it in your national security. You pay for it at risk of your power grid. You're going to pay for it one way or another. Unfortunately, the price may actually be extremely high when you consider the existence of our nation. That's what is at risk. That is why we really, 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 really need to think a lot harder about this trade deal, whatever you want to call it. So, my friends, think hard. Maybe you should write some letters to the White House and say, I don't like this trade deal. Maybe you should write some letters to congressmen, Congress critters. That's what I like to call them. They're all Congress critters. They're all in the politics. Politics. What's that? Many ticks, many bloodsuckers. That's all over the world. All politicians. They're all bloodsuckers. I don't care what flavor they come in. Some may suck a little less blood than others, but they're all bloodsuckers, my friends. None of them are really for your freedoms and looking out for you. I'm not a big fan of big government, especially a big authoritarian one-party government like they have under the CCP. So, my friends, this is what I'm talking about. This is where we need to go. We need to really rethink this stuff. I don't think this is such a great deal. It's not as good a deal as the administration seems to think. And it's just simply because we're not going to be selling our stuff there. We really aren't. But then again, like I said, maybe Trump's thinking 4D chess. I just hope that the Chinese don't outmaneuver him. And while we're waiting back and find ways to cause their automation to kick in to derail this so-called demographic issue that we're thinking is going to derail them. And this could happen. Guys, China's talking about having robots, humanoid robots, available by the end of this year for $8,000. I'm going to go more into this in a future video. So my friends, to see my videos, make sure you get notifications. Make sure you're subscribed. Bang the bell and click all. Bang that bell, click all. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all for watching. Keep your eyes wide open and head on the swivel because we don't know what's coming next. We are also a very big threat for warfare and other things internally, domestically, and internationally right now. We're in a very precarious situation. But if we can get through this, we may see prosperity like you've never imagined. But we got to get through where we're at. So with that, I'm going to say again, thank you for watching. Reg out.